They aimed for power and hit the wrong ship. In the quiet tension of the Red Sea just past midnight, alarms pierced the stillness as radar screens lit up, an incoming hostile missile launched fast and deadly, its target clear, a U.S. aircraft carrier. But in a twist no one saw coming, it missed. It didn't strike the floating city of steel they intended. It struck a nearby support ship, changing everything in an instant. What began as a strategic strike turned into something far more personal. And that's where the story shifts from warfare to something deeper. Because sometimes life works the same way. You weren't the target. You didn't provoke the attack. But you took the hit. A betrayal that wasn't meant for you. A loss that came from someone else's storm. A wound that landed in your heart because you were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what if it wasn't wrong at all? What if the unexpected damage you took was part of a greater message? A deeper plan? What if the blow you never saw coming was the beginning of something life-changing? This isn't just about global conflict. It's about you. It's about the moment pain arrived uninvited and still demanded your strength. So if you ever felt struck by a missile you didn't launch, wounded by a war that wasn't yours, or caught in the fallout of someone else's fight, this story is for you. Because even when the wrong ship gets hit, there can still be purpose in the wreckage. Stay with me. In the volatile waters of the Red Sea, tension simmers just beneath the surface, like a dormant volcano waiting to erupt. This isn't just a busy shipping route. It's one of the most strategically vital and politically sensitive regions on Earth, flanked by nations with long-standing grievances, unsteady alliances, and deeply rooted conflicts. In recent years, the Houthi rebels, operating from Yemen and backed by powerful foreign interests, have grown bolder in their use of advanced weaponry, targeting commercial vessels and, more alarmingly, military ships. Their goal isn't just tactical disruption. It's symbolic dominance. A strike against a U.S. aircraft carrier, for example, isn't just about damaging steel. It's about sending a message to the world. We're here, we're capable, and we're not afraid of giants. The U.S. Navy, aware of the threat, has maintained a visible presence in these waters, deploying ships like destroyers, cruisers, and the famed aircraft carriers, floating cities armed with overwhelming firepower and precision systems. These aren't idle forces. They're moving, monitoring, reacting, always on high alert. Beneath the sleek surface of technology and military strength are thousands of lives, sailors and officers who wake up every day in metal corridors, drink coffee under red lighting in command centers, and check radar screens with eyes that haven't slept enough. Every day, these men and women walk the thin line between peacekeeping and combat readiness, knowing full well that one misstep, one wrong calculation, one blip on the screen could be the beginning of something irreversible. Then came the night it happened. The intelligence had been murky. Tensions were already high. And suddenly, without warning, a missile launched from somewhere along the Yemeni coast. It was fast, silent at first, invisible to the naked eye, until the warning system screamed to life. The initial assumption? It had locked on the most valuable target in range. A U.S. aircraft carrier, packed with fighter jets, command structures, and over 5,000 personnel. It would have been a catastrophic blow, not just militarily, but symbolically, globally. But the missile didn't find the carrier. Whether by technical error, countermeasures, or pure miscalculation, it veered slightly off its path. It struck a nearby support vessel, smaller in size, but no less critical in its role. And just like that, everything changed. The ship was never supposed to be in the spotlight. It was there to assist, to protect, to be invisible in its service. But now it was the one on fire. In one misdirected strike, what was meant to be a symbolic takedown turned into something unexpected, something messier, more human. And this is where the real story begins, not in the coldness of military strategy, but in the lives of those aboard that wrong ship, in the unspoken reality that sometimes life's worst hits don't come because you were the target, but simply because you were nearby. It happened fast, too fast for anyone to fully process in the moment. Just minutes after the missile launched from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen, a long-range radar picked up the signal, sparking a flurry of activity aboard several U.S. Navy vessels positioned in the Red Sea. The initial reading suggested a high-speed, surface-skimming projectile, likely a missile designed for anti-ship warfare. capable of striking with devastating accuracy and explosive force. The most obvious assumption? It was headed for the centerpiece of the fleet, a U.S. aircraft carrier brimming with F/A-18 fighter jets, surveillance drones, radar towers, and a full operational staff of over 5,000 military personnel. But something unexpected happened in those 10 seconds between detection and impact. The carrier's advanced electronic countermeasures were activated, part of a multi-layered defensive system designed to confuse, misdirect, or disable incoming threats. Radar jamming, flare deployments, and evasive maneuvers went into effect. Whether it was due to those countermeasures or a slight miscalculation in the targeting software of the missile itself, the weapon suddenly altered its course, just slightly, just enough. Instead of striking the aircraft carrier, it locked onto a nearby support vessel, a logistics ship quietly sailing alongside the main fleet, tasked with essential but often overlooked duties: refueling, resupplying, transporting crew, and maintaining operational continuity. In that split second, the target shifted, and so did the fate of everyone on board. The missile struck midship with a thunderous explosion, splitting steel and igniting chaos. Alarms blared, water surged through compromised bulkheads, and smoke filled the corridors as sailors scrambled to control the damage, tend the wounded, and seal off the flooding compartments. The ship wasn't built to absorb a direct hit like that. It wasn't armor for war. It was armor for endurance, for service, for support. And yet, it became the center of a war zone, taking a blow intended for something far larger. The immediate response was a coordinated effort of heroism, technical skill, and instinctive action. Fire suppression teams rushed in with hoses and extinguishers. Medics worked a haze of smoke to stabilize the injured, and engineers raced against the rising water to prevent a full systems collapse. Lives were lost in those first few moments. Young sailors who had simply shown up for duty, now caught in the wake of a missile that never should have found them. But many were saved, too, by the bravery of their shipmates, by the drills they had practiced 100 times, and by the strange, sobering clarity that only comes in the middle of chaos. Meanwhile, across the fleet, eyes were locked on the burning vessel, commanders issuing rapid-fire commands to reposition, counterattack if necessary, and prevent a follow-up strike. Intelligence analysts began scouring data to figure out exactly what had gone wrong, or what had, somehow, gone right. Because as tragic as the strike was, it could have been far worse. Had the missile reached its intended target, the aircraft carrier, the casualties could have numbered in the thousands. The strategic implications would have been enormous. An open invitation to global escalation, a tipping point in an already fragile region. But instead, the strike became a lesson in both vulnerability and unexpected resilience. That wrong ship, as many initially described it, bore the brunt of a calculated attack, and in doing so may have prevented a far greater tragedy. In the hours and days that followed, damage assessment teams evaluated the wreckage, investigators pieced together the chain of events, and families of the fallen received the phone calls no one ever wants to make. Yet amid the sorrow, a deeper question began to rise, not just in military briefings, but in the hearts of those watching. Why that ship? Why those people? Why did a deadly missile meant for a symbol of military might end up hitting the quiet, unsung vessel beside it? And perhaps more profoundly, how often in life are we struck by something that wasn't meant for us, yet leaves a permanent mark? It's easy to view the incident through the lens of warfare, geopolitics, and tactical breakdowns. But beyond the headlines and press briefings is the human experience. Those sailors who never asked to be heroes, those moments when fate turns slightly and the missile changes direction. It wasn't just an attack. It was a revelation. That even when you're not the target, you can still be in the path of destruction. And yet, even in that, there is meaning. There is survival. There is purpose. Because sometimes the ship that gets hit unexpectedly, violently, unfairly, becomes the very vessel that shifts the course of the storm. In the immediate aftermath of the missile strike, a strange silence settled over the Red Sea. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, lingering quiet that follows chaos. A quiet where smoke still rises, where steel still groans from its wounds, and where human lives hang in the balance. The support ship, now scarred and partially crippled, drifted in the water, its communications flickering in and out as emergency teams on board fought to stabilize power systems and keep the vessel afloat. The blast had tore a massive hole through the side, compromising several compartments and disabling one of the primary engines. But the ship hadn't gone under. That in itself was a miracle. Rescue operations began almost immediately. Nearby destroyers and supply ships closed in, launching small craft filled with medical personnel, engineers, and reinforcements. Helicopters hovered overhead, lowering stretchers and equipment, while carefully lifting the most critically wounded to safety. On the deck of the damaged vessel, the survivors moved like ghosts, some carrying the injured, some covered in soot and blood, others simply staring into the smoke-filled horizon as the adrenaline slowly wore off. The psychological toll became evident quickly. These weren't battle-hardened combat specialists expecting to take enemy fire. They were support personnel, mechanics, cooks, engineers, logistics officers, men and women who had trained for crisis, yes, but not for direct missile impact. And yet, many of them had acted with breathtaking bravery in those frantic minutes after the explosion. There were stories already beginning to circulate. A junior officer dragging two of his crewmates through a burning hallway with his arm dislocated. A nurse who administered first aid under fallen debris. A 19-year-old sailor who manually sealed a watertight door while water flooded the lower deck, knowing it might trap him in. Acts of quiet, determined heroism that would never make the news, but would never be forgotten by those who were there. As command centers assessed the damage, an entirely different kind of shock began to ripple through the fleet. One not caused by the blast, but by the realization of what had been narrowly avoided. The aircraft carrier, the original target, had been untouched. Thousands of lives saved, a massive international crisis averted, and a symbolic blow to U.S. strength avoided. Not by superior firepower or flawless strategy, but by a twisted trajectory, a miscalculation, or perhaps a bit of divine providence. Yet for those aboard the struck vessel, there was no comfort in being the alternative outcome. They had taken the hit. They had paid the price. And now they were left with the long process of recovery, reflection, and rebuilding, not just of metal and wires, but of morale and identity. Military investigators launched an inquiry into the attack, analyzing flight paths, defense protocols, and radar logs to determine exactly how the missile had locked onto the wrong target. Was it a failure in the enemy's guidance system? A success in the carrier's decoys? A tragic coincidence? Whatever the reason, the results were the same. Lives changed, lives lost, lives shaken awake. Across the ocean back home, families waited anxiously as news trickled in. Some received the worst possible news, while others wept in relief upon hearing that their loved ones had survived. In the barracks, the mess halls, and the decks of nearby ships, a new kind of camaraderie was forming, one not based on shared duty alone, but shared trauma. Survivors embraced, cried, laughed in disbelief, and grieved together. Some questioned why they were still alive. Others quietly thanked whatever force had kept them standing. And in every corner of the fleet, one phrase echoed with weight and reverence. That could have been us. The incident became a wake-up call for leadership, a realignment of perspective. The military machine tends to focus on strategy, structure, and strength, but this was a raw reminder of the cost. The human cost. The people behind the steel. The vulnerability of even the most prepared force. The support ship, once seen as just a logistical necessity, had become a symbol of sacrifice. Its crew, once in the background, were now seen as heroes. Their pain gave others clarity. Their suffering gave others pause. And slowly, a deeper understanding began to grow of how fragile life is, how quickly things can change, and how sometimes the ones who take the unexpected hit are the very ones who shift the narrative for everyone else. There was also an unspoken ripple through the hearts of those who serve. A sense that none of them are immune, that no one is ever really safe, even when it's not supposed to be your fight. That's the cruel unpredictability of war and of life. The missile doesn't always go where it's aimed. The damage doesn't always land on the one who caused it. And sometimes, you're left holding the burden of a blast that had someone else's name written on it. Yet in that harsh truth lies a glimmer of something powerful. Because in surviving, in enduring, in rising from the wreckage, the crew of that ship carried more than wounds. They carried a new definition of strength. They prove that even when you're not built to be hit, you can still withstand the storm. That even when you're the wrong target, your response could be the right example. And perhaps most importantly, they reminded the world that support roles are never small, that behind every great force is a quieter one holding the line, ready to face what no one else sees coming. As repairs began and memorials were planned, the aftermath settled into something solemn but steady. Life aboard the fleet continued, now shaped by the lessons etched into scorched steel and scarred hands. And though the headlines would eventually fade and the news cycle would move on, the memory of that day and the unexpected strength revealed in its wake would live on in every wave that lapped against the hull, in every sailor who looked over their shoulder just a little more aware, and in every life reminded that sometimes survival itself is a victory worth everything. Sometimes life doesn't go the way you plan. Sometimes you're not the target, but you take the hit anyway. You find yourself caught in a storm that wasn't meant for you, pulled into a situation that's not of your making, and you're left standing in the aftermath, trying to piece together what happened and why. The incident involving the missile strike wasn't just about military strategy, geopolitics, or defense systems. It was a stark reminder of life's unpredictable nature. We can't always control the forces that come at us. We can't choose the battles we're pulled into. But what we can control is how we respond when we're caught in the crossfire. The crew aboard that support ship didn't ask for the attack. They weren't prepared for the violence that would rip through their lives. They had no idea that when they woke up that morning, their world would shift dramatically. But in those terrifying moments, they made a choice. They could have let fear, panic, or despair overwhelm them. They could have given up when the ship started to sink, when the flames spread, when the injured screamed for help. But they didn't. They fought. They worked together, using every ounce of training and instinct to save lives, repair what could be repaired, and stop the bleeding. They showed the kind of strength that doesn't come from weapons or armor. It comes from within. The real lesson here isn't about the missile or the damage. It's about resilience. It's about how we endure when the world throws something at us that wasn't intended for us. How we dig deep when life gives us a blow that we didn't deserve. It's about understanding that we won't always have control over what happens to us, but we do have control over how we handle it. That support ship could have sunk that night. Its crew could have been swallowed by the sea of despair, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of their circumstances. But they chose not to. They chose to rise above it, to find meaning in the wreckage, to rebuild and redefine their purpose in the face of tragedy. It's easy to feel like a victim when life hits us hard. It's easy to get lost in the why me and to fall into the trap of resentment. But the real victory comes when we shift our mindset, when we stop asking why me and start asking what now? What can I do now? What can I control now? What's the next step forward, no matter how small? The survivors of that missile attack didn't let their circumstance define them. They didn't allow the randomness of life's blows to determine their future. Instead, they turned their focus inward, harnessing their courage, their unity, and their training to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead was uncertain. In the same way, we all face moments when life feels like it's attacking us for reasons we don't understand. We face obstacles that seem insurmountable, setbacks that feel permanent, and battles that feel too big to win. But it's in those moments that our true strength is revealed. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about how we rise, how we stand back up after the storm, how we gather ourselves even when the pieces of our lives seem scattered. The key to enduring those moments lies in finding something greater than the pain, finding meaning, finding purpose, finding our resolve. In a world where so much is out of our hands, we always have the power to choose our response. Like the crew of that support ship, we can choose to stand firm, to support one another, to find strength in unity and purpose, and to move forward even when the odds are stacked against us. Because it's not the circumstances that define who we are, it's how we face them. And when we choose to face the storm with resilience, we emerge stronger, more capable, and more determined to face whatever comes next. Life is unpredictable, but our response doesn't have to be. The lesson of that day is clear. No matter what missile life launches in your direction, no matter what strike you didn't see coming, you have the power to choose how you face it. You have the power to rise. And in that rise, You will find not just survival, but a deeper strength that no storm can ever take from you. The world may throw at us what we never expected, but in the aftermath, we choose what remains. And that is the true test of strength. If there's one thing we can take away from the story of the missile strike and its aftermath, it's this. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't ask for your permission before it changes direction. Challenges, obstacles, and unexpected setbacks come whether we're prepared or not. But what we do with those moments is what truly matters. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you're facing, I want you to remember that you have the power to choose your response. You may not be able to control the missile life fires at you, but you can control how you respond. Just like the crew of that support ship, you have the capacity for resilience, strength, and courage. You have the ability to rise above the chaos and find your footing, even when everything around you feels uncertain. So, take a moment right now and ask yourself, what are you facing in your life today? What challenges have come your way that feel too big to handle? It might be a financial setback, a broken relationship, or a career that's not where you want it to be. Whatever it is, know that you are not alone. Take a deep breath and decide today that you will not let these circumstances define you. Stand tall, take the next step, and remember that even in the most unexpected and difficult moments, you have the strength to overcome. Don't let fear or uncertainty hold you back. Lean into your resilience, your support system, and your faith. There's power in choosing to keep moving forward, even when you don't have all the answers. So, take that first step, embrace the journey, and know that you're capable of more than you realize. The storm may be fierce, but you are stronger than you think, and with every step you take, you're proving it to yourself.